Welcome back to another episode of The Foamy Heads. You're on the mics tonight with Mitch and Rich. We've got 1, 2, 3. Jesus Christ. Mitch, we've got 3 beers we're drinking tonight, man. At least. That's
I need them.
You had a long day, didn't you? Are you still at the office, Mitch?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking at your background right now. You've got like a little waterfall going, so I can't tell if you're in Tahiti or if you're at the office right now.
I haven't had a vacation in 10 years, man.
Yeah.
So this is as close to water as I get.
Oh, that's nice. Well, at least we'll be drinking tonight. We've got a pretty fun special guest joining us tonight. We're kind of just sitting here drinking beers. Living Waters has kind of been something we've talked about for a while, Mitch. You know, we did their first 2 can releases when they first came out. That was actually one of the first milkshake IPAs that I actually enjoyed. And we'll kind of get into that a little bit as we move, but we've got Ryan McCay with us tonight from Living Waters. Ryan, how's it going tonight, man?
Going good. Just another day in paradise.
Long day today, man?
Yeah. Just getting ready for our next milkshake actually. So
okay.
Oh, sweet.
That'll be kind of interesting to talk about. For one thing, milkshake IPAs have never really been my thing, but I will have to say, I think the one that you had, the Burgess, which was one of your first can releases, that I wouldn't say it converted me, but there's not very many milkshake IPAs that I can drink, but yours has always been one of them. I've had both of them now. So one awesome. That I enjoy drinking. So I think you guys are putting out good work. But Mitch, what are we drinking tonight to kind of start us off?
Well, we were going to do Fitzgerald as one of them, but I fucked that up. So we went for the second, the second production of Goza, and it's the Multnomah. And, I haven't had this one yet myself, so That'll be enjoyable for me. Richard, this one, it may not be up your alley in terms of your profile when it comes to the, sours and other things, but I'm excited to hear your opinion.
I'm going to let Ryan kind of ease me into this one just because Ryan, just to give you a heads up, man, I am ignorant to sours and gozas and all that. Tart, I don't necessarily mind if it's a little bit of it. Sour is kind of more something that's unknown to me. My palate typically goes towards either the coffee chocolate stout side, or it goes towards the West Coast dank IPA, or kind of in the New England hazy style. But sours and gozas aren't really my thing. So I'm kind of hoping you're going to kind of talk to me about this beer, because it's a little intimidating right now just looking at it.
Don't be intimidated. It's so this is our blueberry goza, kind of muffiny. We use copious amounts of muffins and blueberry puree to kind of get it to that vibe. It's a little tart, but not overly tart. Definitely try to make our gozas more like lawnmower beers that you can just crank whenever it's a hot day. That kind of vibe.
Are gozas typically more on the sour end of the side of spectrum, or are they more on I guess if I had to say, if I'm going to have a sour type of beer, is goza more towards the easier side of drinking, or is goza more, again, you're talking to a guy that's like super knowledgeable about IPAs and stouts, but when it comes to sours and gozas and that kind of stuff, I know absolutely nothing. Mitch knows a little bit more.
So it just depends on how you're making it. So we use this would not be considered like a authentic, true to like style traditional goza, because we use a kettle souring process, which means we use a lactic acid producing bacteria in our kettle, which then sours it overnight, whereas the typical souring process and some of those ones that are very, very sour are going to be like aged for a year or more. So this just kind of sours it pretty quick. We hit a pH that we like. We boil it to kill that bacteria so it doesn't infect our other beers. Then we crash it, put it into the tank, and ferment it with a different strain of yeast. So nice. Probably TMI, but
No, I enjoyed that. I like hearing it, man.
That's what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Mitch, have you poured yours yet?
No, I'm pouring it, I failed to mention at the beginning, because we're using Zoom to see each other. Are you in gallery view by chance, Ryan? If you see where it says,
I can see Yes, I am.
Awesome. That's what I meant to tell you before. That's how I'm able to see everybody instead of the screen flipping by.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm getting into it now. I've got a larger glass than the Teku or Tiku glass, however you say it. I'm bad at English, but
it's
I've got
pink or purple or blueberry-ish.
yeah, that blueberry's coming through, man. What's the muffin aspect of it here on the description?
It's muffins.
Oh, blueberry muffins. ESL, man. ESL. I was thinking too deep on that one.
Oh shit.
No, so we're actually adding muffins into the mash to kind of get that vibe, and then adding the blueberry puree to kind of really. So they're blueberry muffins is what we're adding, but then into the boil we're actually, or into the fermenter we're adding in puree to kind of get that blueberry vibe.
And I'll
See if
say
it
that
normalized there. Hell yeah.
Mitch is getting a nice foamy head on it. Mitch, yours is, I don't know about yours, but my foamy head dissipated very quickly. That's what I like, because I'm looking at it and it's kind of like foaming up, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, and then I'm starting to get impatient because I want to kind of get into it, and then it kind of just like eases itself down, and now it's like ready to drink. So I'm taking a sniff just to kind of see what I can get out of it. But again, this is my ignorance speaking on sours and gozes. I don't know much about, so I really don't know what to expect.
Yeah. Oh, Ryan, what are you drinking? You're drinking with us tonight.
I'm actually drinking Fitzgerald right now because I didn't have any Multnomah with me in my house. I drink it all. But it's also a Goza. So Goza as a style is typically a lot more saline. You're using a higher salt percentage, so it's going to be kind of that dryish kind of vibe. And then we use ground coriander in the boil, which kind of gives it a lemon zest kind of flavor. And then, yeah, you add in the blueberry puree. In my case, so you're talking about the foam dissipating. Anything with fruit in it is going to cause the foam to fruit is a foam negative addition. So any beer that has fruit in it is going to see really a lot of struggle with keeping that foam there unless they add something to the malt bill that allows it to maintain. So
Awesome.
sometimes you can counteract that with wheat or some other additions, but yeah, just in general, it's hard as hell to actually get foam to keep on a any kind of sour that is fruited. So
nice. Okay, that's
good
to
know. That was news to me.
Learning makes me think of Ralph from Simpsons. I'm learning.
I'm gonna jump in and take a sip, Mitch.
Yeah, I just want to say that Fitzgerald, it didn't last long because it was really delicious. I'm a fan of blood orange myself, so any blood orange thing you put in front of me, I'm gonna probably throw it back real quick.
Nice.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting more of that whenever I see it again. All right.
Jump in and take a sip of this.
Man, I really like the nose on it. That's very blueberry.
Hey, it's not sour. I mean, it is, but
it's a calm sour. Yeah.
That's
oh man. Dude.
Oh, shit, man. That's actually not how Ryan. Good work, man.
Thanks.
I don't know if I'm surprised or not, to be honest, because this is Mitch can actually we kind of just jumping back a little bit. We did an episode, Ryan, with some of with your first 2 can releases that you guys did, and the Burgess and the Alma, but I believe the Burgess was the milkshake IPA. And that was my first ever milkshake IPA that I actually really enjoyed. So, and I say this to Mitch all the time because, we're typically the guys that like to, when you guys have something new that comes out, we're ordering it online, we're picking it up. Mitch is closer to Nashville than I am. I live out in Murfreesboro. So just Mitch is oftentimes able to jump down there and get it for us. But I've said this to Mitch time and time again, that there's not a lot of breweries that we drink that has those styles of beers that are typically a turnoff for me that can kind of convert me, and you guys have actually done really well with the milkshake IPA. So I don't know if I'm surprised or not, the fact that I like this goza because it's typically not my style, but it's easy to drink. It's refreshing. That's a little hot upstairs right now for me. So this is actually perfect.
Just to get to know you a little better, did you ever homebrew before you started brewing professionally?
Yeah, so IT professional, converted to homebrewer, and yeah, homebrewed for a couple of years, and then started up the brewery.
Nice.
But really, before that, I was a beer trader, and so that was kind of my vibe. And so I just tried beers from all over, and uh, actually got into homebrewing about the time that Bearded Iris and Southern Grist were just opening. So this
Oh.
is back then. And yeah, so that's kind of my background, just homebrewer turned into now I brew really big batches of homebrew in a dairy tank.
Yeah.
So we do everything manually. So we're stirring everything manually in the back with paddles and no automation. So
And
just
that
hard
needs to
work.
be a some B-roll and a banner on the website right there. Slow roll or whatever, slow mo it. Oh, that'd be
That'd be a
cool.
pretty good look. Ryan, was there a certain like style that you kept home brewing that you kind of favored more than the others that kind of put you into the, hey, I want to kind of start moving towards a little bit bigger production than just doing my homebrew? Was there a style in particular that led you down that path?
Yeah. So, I mean, back whenever I was getting into like trading beer and everything like that, the style that we couldn't get in Nashville, which that's obviously changed now, was New England IPAs. You
Hmm.
just you didn't see it here. You didn't really see it many places, except for like your major metro centers. And so you couldn't get it. And yeah, it was just, I wanted that beer. And so the only way for me to get it other than trading was to make it myself. And so I spent years basically just honing in on a recipe that I liked. Kind of my benchmark was Hill Farmstead. And that's what I was like trying to brew towards. And yeah, I just had a can of Abner the other day, which was fantastic and reminded me how much further I have to go. But yeah, so New England IPAs, and then I was always into stouts, so started brewing a lot of that, a lot of Belgian styles. So do quads, tripels, your traditional, your West Veterans, stuff like that. Um, but yeah, that's
Man.
10-second interview, right?
No,
That's good stuff.
that's interesting. Did what you said you typically your New England IPAs were kind of the ones that you brewed just because you couldn't find a lot of that around here. Has any of those translated into kind of more of what is closest to that beer that you produce or can or sell today?
Yeah, so Goldfoss, which is actually releasing in the next 11 minutes, and I have to do that while we're doing the interview. Um, but
Hell
yeah,
yeah.
I mean that's kind of like the one that was kind of the OG recipe that I had spent a long time working on, and it just takes a long time because your homebrew methods don't necessarily translate to commercial, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I get it to do the things that it did whenever I was over there, and then you have new tools that are a lot more fun that make things easier. But yeah, it's just different because you have fermentation vessel shape, you have yeast pitch sizes, and just everything is different. And so your efficiencies are different, your scale is different. So it's a lot, but it's good. It's fun.
So it's not just as simple as multiplying the recipe times X in order to get the same beer.
I really wish it were that easy.
Man. Yeah, that would be nice.
Bullfoss. Why does that sound familiar? I feel
Well,
like I've had that before.
it's been on the menu before, I believe.
hmm
I think we
Okay.
were there one day too.
Mhm.
Going there, there's a guy with dark hair that I usually see working at the desk. Is that the coffee side of the house, dude?
Yeah, Gentry.
Gentry.
Um,
Okay.
he's kind of medium, long hair, dark
Yeah.
hair, kind of. Yeah, yeah. So he's our head of coffee and one of the partners. So he runs the whole coffee program, and that's his baby, and he runs it, and I don't interfere because he's a coffee expert. And then we kind of collaborate. So anytime we're doing a coffee beer, I have somebody who is an expert in his field that kind of lends me his palate and vice versa.
That's cool.
So yeah.
I felt bad because I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna recognize this guy or not at the beginning, because I didn't know who it was, because I'm bad with names, and then I didn't ask any of their names either. If they're working, I don't want to bother them, so it's like I'll just keep to my own until time comes, I guess. But
He's super chill, very quiet. So
yeah, he's always super polite, and he knew my name, and I could never reciprocate. I was like,
It makes
"Hey,
Mitch feel
man."
bad.
You? How's it going, dude?
Dude.
But it's always been a good time going there. I love the space, and if you open up touring ever, I'm gonna pay to see the back end there. So.
Well, it's a pretty short tour because we have about 5 feet worth of working space. So
Wow.
it's all covered with barrels and bags of grain and just equipment. And
Nice.
so, I mean, we have 4 people working back there now, but usually only 2 at a time. So, yeah, any more than that, and it gets canning days are very interesting. Let's just say.
I was about to ask about that because I know you guys just recently started canning. I think it was Alma and Burgess were your first 2 can releases. What was that? I don't want to use the word struggle, but maybe that was kind of what it was, because you guys had, you're kegging and you're doing stuff for like No Quarter. Shout out to No Quarter over in Nashville. You're doing kegs for places like those guys, and then of course you're doing taps off your wall in your brewery. But then you had to convert to kind of like also allow sharing space for canning. So how does that make your day more difficult? Is it, obviously you guys have a tight space already? How does that? I don't know what I'm asking. How does that work? Because I'm assuming you have to share that space now with a canning process.
Yeah. So what we ended up doing was we had a 6-stack of barrels that was sitting back there that were our oldest barrels, which are tasting really good right now. And so we moved those out actually into, I mean, they're decorations. They're not actually full. Sorry,
I was wondering.
All
the barrels.
Yeah, so we moved them out into the main area, and then that's where the canning line is now residing. And so for most of the time, it's it's just a small tabletop. So it's like you have a 2-head filler and a seamer, and you just have to. It's all manual, and so we have to fill every can and seam every can by hand. I mean, there's a little bit of automation, but it's just like, you see the conveyor belts. We don't have any of that stuff. It's literally just, okay, here you go, put a lid on it, seam it, stuff like that. So we have to be very alert, and quality control has to be on top of it. And we're canning a lot, so it's hard, but we're figuring it out.
So it's 1 drink minimum before you start production.
Oh, no. You see, you drink while you're going, because
there we go.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like, oh, that seam didn't go on that can, so it's a bad can, and it's like, well, I guess I have to drink this now.
You don't want it to go to waste, Ryan.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. Right. So, needless to say, there's a lot of free beer to drink in the back whenever you're canning, because machines don't like to always work how they're supposed to.
That reminds me of I haven't been myself, but the Oscar Blues, and I forget which one in Colorado near Denver, I believe, but they have a bin for the tour designated as the rejects, where the machines kick it out, and you can just pick as many as you want out and just keep drinking whenever. I don't know. And there's also like a big wheel gym or something there. I haven't been myself, but I want to check that shit out. But I always forget about the reject cans or the machines that mess up on some production things. I always forget about those. So it's definitely part of the process.
Ryan, do you get a lot of those?
I mean, I think this last run we did 90 some odd cases of beer, and we only had about a case and a half case and a half of loss, which is, around like 36 beers or so. So, not bad. But the ones that are scary, the ones where like the can gets jammed in the seamer and it just starts keeping on trying to spin and then sprays you with beer and terrifies you because it's jagged metal going everywhere.
Oh,
totally fun.
Mitch, I'm gonna jump back to this goes real quick. I'm actually doing pretty good on it.
I'm about out of it.
Yeah,
it's I guess the word would be crushable.
Ryan, congrats, man. We appreciate it. This is a goza that I'm able to drink. So, cheers to you.
That's the goal, right?
It's rare we find something sweet, tarty, sour that Richard can get a handle on.
Yeah,
I think the first thing I gave you was Yazoo's Funky. It was like their first production of the funk. I still got a bottle.
The funk.
Yeah, it was awesome, but I learned Richard did not like sour beers that night.
Mitch picked me up somehow and dropped me right into the deep end with that one. I didn't know how to swim at the time. It was just not a pleasant experience. I'm sure it's a great beer. From a guy that's never had something that funky and that tart and that sour before, and man, those can get funky. Just, Yazoo's, they've kind of taken that direction where they've created like a whole Embrace the Funk series, and they go into that direction, and that is kind of what like their goal is to make funky beers. And Mitch, I think that was one of those series, that the one that you gave me the first time, and that was definitely an experience for me.
Yeah, I'm curious what the one is now. I don't remember the percentages of those beers, so I don't know if it stayed good or if it's funky.
Was it Flanders Red? Was it Funky Blue Persuasion?
I think it might have been the Flanders Red.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he won a GABF for one of his Flanders Reds.
Oh, shit.
I think he got I don't want to misspeak what it is. I know he got a GABF. But Brandon does an awesome job with the sour program if you're into sours. Those are all barrel-aged sours, so like he blends them, takes a very long time, over a year, to like get them to where they need to be. So definitely, if you're into sours, Brandon does a great job. Barik Joel does an awesome job as well.
Oh yeah, Barik,
But sorry, little sidebar there. But
no, there's an art to that for sure.
Yes.
I'm ignorant. Again, that's just, it's a little weird for me. I'll say it till the day I die. I don't know enough about them in order to speak intelligent about it, but I know that there's an art to it. And I haven't had enough to be able to understand it.
If you need to knock out the website thing, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Embrace the Funk. It turns out the style is ranked number 14 on Beer Advocate. For this Embrace the Funk, their ranked number 14 for sour. Flanders Red. So I guess there's multiple Flanders Red. I haven't dove into the subject in a long time, actually since the sour beer share at Yazoo for years ago. But there was something, maybe I'll be able to find it maybe in a month if I really put my head to it. But there was a sour out there that really destroyed me during that beer share. I don't know what it was.
Was it an Upland sour?
Upland? Let me look that up. It had a super death or black metal label to it.
Oh, funk metal from Jester King?
Ooh, let me see. Funk metal.
Was it like a darker sour, like a sour stout?
To my memory, it was. I wish I had taken a picture of it. Dang, the logo's cool for funk metal. I don't know if that was it or not. I feel like it had a skeleton or something on the logo. But now I'm going to look for funk metal because it looks rad. I've always liked Jester King, though. So, I mean, it's been a while since I've had a Jester King brew. I don't know what it was. I'll just have to kick it around and figure it out. That thing, man, I had to get a rinser and recover a bit. and all it was like a taster size portion. I was not ready for it. But gosh, it's been a while since I've had Embrace the Funk. I've mainly had old ones. It's 6.4%, so I wonder how it aged. I don't know, but
Different.
what's your final thoughts on this blueberry goza?
I like it. I really do. It's interesting because I've, I mean, there's that sour aspect to it, but it's not. It wasn't as sour as I thought. I guess maybe more tart. Ryan may have to correct me on this one, but it's more tart than it is sour. I mean, I can definitely sense a little bit of sour in it, but the fruit definitely kind of balances everything out. The blueberry helps a lot. It's easy drinking, man. I like it. It's, I'll drink another one of it. I really will. I think it's great.
I gotta clear my
Glad you
throat
like
real
it,
quick.
man.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah, it was awesome. I wish I bought a 4-pack, to be honest. I'll have to get more. That and Fitzgerald, dude. I'm stoked to see the next lineup of it.
Next guy we're doing is going to be DeSoto, which is it won't be for a little bit, but it'll be black currant and cassia bark. So it comes off as very much like a blackberry cobbler kind of vibe.
Nice.
So,
Get down with that.
So Fitzgerald, I know, was in collaboration with No Quarters, and that was a machine like adaptation of a name, right? The Fitzgerald. I heard something about that. I think it was from that other podcast, but what are the inspirations for the names coming from?
So all of the names of the beers, if it's a beer that I think you should consume like soon-ish, I name them after waterfalls in different places of the world. I try to kind of tie them to a region that has meaning for me or is kind of along the vibe. Like, for example, Yosemite is kind of West Coasty vibes, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I called it Yosemite, because California, Yosemite National Park, Yosemite Waterfall, versus like Goldfoss. We just had some really cool stories whenever we first opened, and that seemed like the right name. We had another one that was like a coconut IPA that we called Tanago, which is like a waterfall and like coconut growing region, that kind of thing. And then all of our stouts are named after rivers. So, river goes on for a really long time, and so you can age it. And there's less worry about it going bad or anything like that.
Nice. I knew we were going to ask about the waterfalls and river. It was coming up.
You plucked the question right out of my head, actually, because that was where I was going next. To be honest,
well, I didn't know that would start it right there. That makes complete sense, though. Burgess, I just did not put together for some reason, though I've been to those falls before. It's like, okay, I totally get it now. That's
speaking of Yosemite, I guess I've got two in front of me, Ryan. I'm going to leave it to the expert here, to be honest. We've got Yosemite before, and then we've got Victoria as well. So if I'm looking at both of them, kind of one's they're both 7.5%. One's New England. I don't know if the other one is New England as well, but it's DDH. In what order would I drink these? I've got Yosemite and then I've got Victoria. Is there one that I should have before the other?
Yeah, I would say Victoria is probably the one to go first, just because the palette and the target on that is going to be a softer kind of vibe to Yosemite. So it'll go well first and then second. I mean, really, you can go whatever order. They'll both taste good, hopefully. But yeah.
Sweet.
I'm not going to complain either way if I have to drink them in the opposite order, but I'm going to take Ryan's word on it and just kind of jump right in. Do I have another beer glass somewhere?
Man, whenever you came out with the Yosemite, I probably should save it for Yosemite before, but that Yosemite with Galaxy was awesome. Long dramatic pause and all. It was fantastic. I gave it to my boss. So I bought a Crowler, I think, and I bought it like 2 or 3 or 4 more times after that too. And I shared it with him on his boat, and he was like, "Oh, it's nice, hoppy, bitter, and mixed with bong water. This is fantastic." It's like, yes. And he ran a beer podcast in the past called Big Foamy Head. So we're a little bit of a departure from that generation. He's a little older, so he knows quite a bit about beer and did a few tourings and brewings and whatnot. So at some point we're going to bring him back on too. But yeah, I thought that was a pretty good description and used it on my Untapped description. I think I was like, I can't let that one die. I need to be able to refer back to that. But it was awesome. I think the other guy we have on here sometimes, DJ, really, he became a fan after that one as well. But I think that was the core brew that brought us into Living Waters.
You talking about the Yosemite?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. We were at No Quarter one day. We were actually there seeing.
Oh yeah.
I think the goal was pinball, and then there was this guy named Zilla's Pit Barbecue that we were just kind of like, we're in the mood for barbecue, and we're just interested in some brisket, and we're like, let's go check it out. And oh, by the way, pinball, it sounds like a kick-ass time. So we went there, and I remember showing up. Mitch, I can't remember if you had shown up first or if I got there first, but I just remember looking at it and I go, Living Waters. I had never even heard of those guys before. And the beer on tap, of course, I'm getting ahead of myself as I'm drinking the Victoria, but I think the one on tap was Yosemite. And I was kind of looked at, I was like, IPAs. I like IPAs. I'm going to go with that one. And they poured it for me, and I took a sip. Man, it was solid. I just remember going, holy shit, this is actually a really good IPA. I'm a really big fan of this one. Actually, I think, Mitch, I was there first and you showed up after the fact because I was telling you about it. And I don't think you had heard of them at the time either, at least not from a brewery standpoint.
No, yeah. I hadn't heard. Apparently, I haven't heard about like 12 other breweries that popped up in the past like 2 years. But yeah, whenever I showed up to No Quarters, it quickly became like an establishment I started to go every weekend or so that I could. And especially Zilla's. That's when I first had Zilla. Mm-hmm. So all I'm missing is a Zilla hat now.
Yeah. Oh, you got your No Quarter hat on. I can see it in the video. That took me a minute. I just now see it.
But yeah, man, there seems to be a little trifecta between the three places as the year progresses that I'm picking up on social media and whatnot. So I'm excited about that. I mean, you can't go wrong with pinball, barbecue, and beer. So
nope.
You can only go up.
And I think Baker and the Beard was there that day. I think he was bartending kind of behind the counter. It's just, I recognized him, and of course, he had shown up the next couple of times we were there playing pinball, and then he showed up at a couple of other places. Mitch, DJ, and I went to check out Crazy Gnome Brewing in Nashville this past weekend just to kind of pick up some crowlers. They were doing like $10 crowler specials. We went and picked them up, and he was sitting there, the guy that runs the Baker and the Beard Instagram page. His name slips my mind, but he was sitting there kind of hanging out. But it's interesting because we showed up to No Quarter to play pinball and to get barbecue and to drink beers, but we had no idea that Living Waters was on tap at the time. And it was just kind of, number 2 stuck up on the wall, an IPA. And I was like, okay, I'll have that one. And after that, it was kind of like, we need to see what else these guys have to offer because Yosemite was kick ass.
And I still haven't checked. Did you say I went with you?
I think you were there the first time.
I went to No Quarter, but I don't remember the Crazy Gnome. You told me about that one.
Yeah, no, me and DJ and I had gone to Crazy Gnome this past weekend.
Oh, I got shit mixed up. All right.
Yeah, you did. You're only one beer in, though, right, Mitch?
I was pouring my beer, man. And I started following Baker and the Beard recently just because I think we saw him at the last event at Living Waters, and we started talking about it. So he seems to get around a lot around the beer scene here. Mm-hmm. Is that someone you know, or?
Yeah, I was actually talking to Joe right before I got back home.
Cool.
Because we have a collaboration beer coming out that will be a fun one to keep an eye on. It'll be probably around October. But yeah, you'll want to keep an eye out for that.
I will.
I'm definitely interested in that. And now that I've talked about everything about the beer that I'm not drinking, kind of talking about the beer that I am drinking. Sorry, Ryan, I just kind of got off on a little bit of a little bit of a different path. But tell us a little bit about Victoria. Citra, Idaho 7 hops. I like Citra hops. That's kind of my deal. Citra, like, I typically go if I'm going to have Citra beers, put it in like, Beer Divers does home style. That's a single hop Citra beer. Decadent makes a Citra, which is an all hop and all Citra beer. Citra hops are kind of like my thing. So, obviously Victoria is a great beer, but part of the reason why Jones on it so much is because of the Citra hops, but I'm not too familiar with Idaho 7. I've had a couple of beers with it before, but how does that play into how this beer works?
So kind of the best way to describe Idaho 7 is pineapple. So it's definitely like, in this beer, it comes through very much like pineapple rind a little bit. So typically, like, Idaho 7 is one of those hops that lasts for a pretty long time. And so whenever I'm designing a recipe, and I look at Citra, like, Citra is one of those very fragile hops. Like, it'll drop off super quick. And so we notice a pretty significant change in flavor profile, even in canned or bottled or whatever product of any kind of Citra beer, because the Citra hops just have this like crazy drop off. Like, it's like, hey, hella orange juice down to like nothing. And so you need to like balance it. So like with Yosemite, whenever we're using that, like, the Citra is there really, really strong for the first couple weeks, maybe first few weeks, and then it drops off, and you have to have those supplementary hops to really keep that beer going. But it has to taste good at all stages of the game.
Right.
And so with this one, it's like I use the Citra at the beginning because whenever this one's like fresh, it's like banging. And then whenever it like whenever the Citra falls off, the Idaho 7 kind of picks up, and it's just like straight pineapple. So it's about that point right now because it's like 2.5 weeks ish. So it's hitting that point where it's going to hit the pineapple stride, and the pineapple will be there for 5 weeks. So
interesting.
So you telling me that if I were to have this thing straight off the canning line versus maybe save one for a month, I'm going to get two different flavor profiles from this IPA?
Yeah, I mean, just in general, what I've seen is like it changes through. I mean, beer is just a living product, right? So we don't get the yeast out of solution, and the hops are just one of those things. It's just Citra, like, if light hits it, even the slightest bit, you lose all the aroma, and it's just like toast. And so it's one of those things, like, even sitting at a bar in a stool or anywhere where you can see UV light, like, it's going to affect the flavor. So I mean, every little detail, even heat, is going to affect the flavor. So it's just kind of crazy. I don't know. I get too much into the science side of things, so feel free to stop me.
No, that's
No,
what
dude.
we're interested in. That actually, I mean, that's what we're drinking. I want to know about it.
Yeah, you're bringing it, man. I'm loving it.
Yeah. I had no idea this beer was going to taste different, 2.5 weeks ago compared to right now. Even if it's just in the slightest, I am picking up on some pineapple in this beer, and that's kind of why I was curious. I think the last time we had Victoria was kind of fresh off in the tap room when we had it at first. So, and I don't remember it tasting as sweet as it is now. So it's that would make sense.
Man, so the nose of it right now is pretty pungent, and just a little bit of bitter nose, but with like a slight citrusy or pineapple-y hint.
It's a sweet smell for sure.
Yeah. That's if you could take hops or even a beer profile and create an air freshener out of it, that's what would be in my car all the time.
That'd be so good right now.
It'd be awesome.
Ryan smells beer all day. The last thing I think he wants to smell when he gets in his car when he goes home is beer. That doesn't mean you and I, Mitch, don't want to smell beer when we get in our car.
Man, I'm diving into it now. The body is I got to put it under my light over here. It's hazy. It's lighter hazy, but it's still hazy. What do you think, Richard? You probably describe it more.
It's good. I'm actually a little bit further in, I think, than you are right now. You said you're about to dive in. I probably got about 4 or 5 ounces left right now in my can. I've been kind of enjoying this one, but the hazier IPAs, the citrusy, the sweeter, pineapple, ironically, is typically the style that I go for. when I drink an IPA. It's either on that side of the spectrum, sweet, pineapple, citrusy, or I like to go all the way over to the dank side of things. Do West Coast, do higher IBUs, higher ABV. If it's boozy, that's fine, but complement the higher ABV with a higher IBU count. That's kind of more the dank West Coast IPA style that I prefer. Or go all the way to this side, which is sweet, citrusy, a little hazy. It's perfect. This is my style IPA. I could drink this all day. If it's hot outside, it's a good beer to drink. I'm sitting inside upstairs in my bonus room right now. It's a good beer to drink. It just all around, it's something I enjoy. So I like it a lot.
Man, as I dove in, the nose fits exactly the taste profile, if not amplified more so.
Yep.
And I get that nice bitterness. The sweetness is there. I don't know if I'd be able to pick up on pineapple alone without knowing about it, but man, it's definitely got that sweet profile to it. I'm loving it. It leaves a little bit of a mouthfeel too, I believe. It
Sticks
almost
with you a little bit.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of I want to exactly compare the two competition, but Bearded Iris always leaves that weird back of the throat kind of feeling or whatever. This is getting really close to that kind of profile to me, and in my opinion, and I enjoy it. And this is sweet. This makes, I don't know, it makes my mouth happy. I'll put it that way. That's what
Ryan,
she said.
Ryan, does this beer taste a little bit different if it's a little bit warmer as opposed to keeping it super cold? Because my beers have been sitting out probably since the beginning of when we first started talking. And it's not super cold, but it's more than just room temperature. It's chilled a little bit more. But I'm picking up again, and it could be because of the fact that it's been a little bit longer in the can than when it was first released, but it almost seems sweeter now than when I first started drinking it tonight, which was just a little bit colder.
Yeah, so I mean, you're definitely going to get IPAs are one of those hard things, right? You don't want to leave it just to get hot, especially if you're outside, it's just going to kill the beer. The hops are going to be gone. It's going to skunk it. It's not going to be tasting very good after it gets warm from UV light and everything like that. But just sitting out like this is not going to be the end of the world. And also as long as you're drinking it, if you're out and about kayaking or doing something crazy like that, drink it straight out of the can because it's going to keep the beer better. Yeah. But yeah, definitely going to accentuate those flavors. That's just whenever you have a stout, you just let it warm up because the flavor is going to come out crazy good once it's warmed up a little bit. And so you're definitely going to get that accentuation. But at some point, it's going to be one of those dive bombs. Okay, this is no longer any good, any good. But that's usually because of the light, right?
That's true. Yeah.
Waterfall beer. It's a waterfall beer. Want to drink it sooner than later. It's interesting because I've got a you kind of alluded to it at the first part. I'm in IT as well. I'm more kind of on the AI/business intelligence side of things. I do a lot with big data and kind of more on the development software side. But I have been in IT for most of my professional career, and my prior manager, IPA has to come. He's a big beer guy. IPAs is his only style of beer. Has to come straight out of the fridge. Can't let it warm up, and then he drinks it. And I go, well, why wouldn't you want to let it warm up just a little bit so you can kind of understand the different flavors that come through? And he was like, I want to taste bitter. I want it to hit me in the face, and then I want to be done with it. He just doesn't, he doesn't necessarily go for the multiple flavors that come after it. He just wants dank, hoppy, bitter, hit you in the face and drink his beer. If he could drink it with ice shards in it, he would. And he and I, as always, it's an ongoing joke. We kind of clash heads about that every once in a while because I like to let it sit for a little bit, warm up, so I can kind of taste the flavors. Because honestly, I think this beer has more flavor to it as it's been sitting on my table tonight, kind of getting a little bit warmer than just if I were to just throw it in the freezer for 6-7 hours and then take it out and drink it with ice shards in it.
Speaking of that, that's the only way I got into IPAs was an ice cold hop slam. And you have a similar story or drink, I think, Richard, as well. It's something that obliterates the palate. It's what really draws you in.
I think my first IPA that I had was the 120 from Dogfish Head, and that was, sitting at 17-18% ABV and 120 IBUs, and I'm just sitting there drinking, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I mean, it seriously was. I was like, there's no way beer is supposed to taste like this. There have been other beers that have higher IBUs and higher ABV that have come out since then that are a little bit more complicated, but that was kind of like one of my first forays into IPAs. And then I had also had Stone's, kind of going towards the opposite end of the spectrum, Stone's Ruin 10, which was kind of like their 10-year anniversary of their Ruination Double IPA. It's just super dank, super bitter, super high in alcohol content. It's their triple IPA. That was the opposite side of the spectrum. So I had that one. I had 120-minute IPA first, Mitch, and then I had Stone Ruin 10, kind of following that. So I'd had two literally opposite ends of the spectrum of an IPA, and I didn't really know what to think an IPA was at that point because I was confused as fuck. I didn't know what an IPA was supposed to taste like.
Well, on craft beer in general, what beer really drew you in to start even home brewing, Ryan?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much if you look at I'm more of a classical New England IPA person, so pretty much anything from Hill Farmstead or Sip of Sunshine from or Heady Topper.
Ooh,
those kind of guys,
yeah.
That was kind of like my OG, and then Treehouse kind of up leveled that. And yeah, I mean, that was kind of what got me wanting to brew beer, because I was like, this is something that I feel like I can dive into from a scientific perspective and try to figure stuff out, and it's fun. And now it's just you have very different schools of thought when it comes to even New England IPA. And so you have your hazy, crazy, wow, this is so dank, of monkish, versus your soft, complex, and a lot of different flavor profiles, but a lot going on of Hill Farmstead. And then we even have our own local version and Bearded Iris and Southern Grist, and what they're doing with New England's.
Right.
And so yeah, I mean, everybody's kind of got their own target, but I mean, the consistent thing is they're all hazy, all a lot of hop presence, a lot of hops going on, and where people take that is always interesting and fun. But yeah, I would say the folks in Vermont know what they're doing, and Boston, and Trillium as well. Another
Trillium is good.
And yeah, if I could get to that point, I mean, that's kind of my target. If I could get around to a monkish or a Hill Farmstead kind of vibe, which I know they're two completely opposite ends of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if I could find a way to do both of those, I would be happy. So
I'm looking forward to seeing that. There's a dude out in California that we recently did some trades with, and he was talking about just the kind of monk-ish zombies that are out on the West Coast. He sent something, I can't remember what. I think it was a McKellar IPA as a surprise to us. Mm-hmm. He's like, this is what all the lineup was about recently. It was good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't had a whole lot of the West Coast IPAs, but I make it a point to venture around if I am out there at any time. It's been over a year or two now since I've been there. But,
San Diego.
Yeah. Oh, man.
You got family out there, right, Mitch?
For now, yeah.
Yeah.
He's getting by.
San Diego's, I mean, it's a great place. There's so many breweries out in San Diego that were just, I remember when my wife and I went there, and it was ridiculous. I had a list that I wanted to accomplish, and I couldn't come anywhere close to it. Even just in the number of days that we were there, you just get sick can't believe I'm saying this, but you get sick of beer before you can get anywhere close to finishing the list that you want to accomplish in San Diego. They've got so much beer out there. It's redonkulous.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I'm definitely gonna set up some trades with that guy and send some Living Waters brews over there.
Oh yeah.
Get some. I want to know, see if he's got any kind of pull for like interest. And I don't know, man. I haven't done a whole lot of trading, but I think Nashville's got what it takes to trade at this point in time. I mean, they did a couple years ago, and it's even more so now, I would assume. So
Yeah.
I just haven't gotten into it. I've just been work takes my soul and slays it.
Sure,
that's what beer's for. But I mean, doing the beer thing, you know, and a full-time gig, is that kind of your break and, you know, freedom from the usual grind,
how's that
I guess,
work?
or what?
I work a lot of hours. It doesn't really work, but I try to make it work, right? You know, it's a passion project. I actually don't get paid to run the brewery. My full-time job is how I get paid, and I just make beer and try to make it work, you know, and hopefully that'll change sometime. But for now, it's just most of my nights are spent diving into scientific papers and trying to find out better ways to make beer. And then also just trying to like just iterate, and every brew that we do, we get better. And so I'm excited. And also it changes the beers, right? So I'm not one to say this is what Yosemite is always going to taste like, or this is what Victoria is always going to taste like. Like there's always something I can improve and change. That's kind of the name of Living Waters. Like it's a living thing. Like the river is never the same. The waterfall is never the same. And so it's always going to be changing a little bit because I'm always going to be tweaking it. It's never perfect, right?
Like that, yeah.
And so it's always this constant pursuit of perfection. And I know that I'm never going to achieve it, but I'm going to keep going. And so that's my goal. And so it's like right now we're playing around with a lot of different things, water profiles and yeast strains and combinations, and trying to find, you know, there's some things that I want to change about each of our beers. I want to soften the mouthfeel. I want to make it fluffier. I want to make it better. I want to get that hop profile to where it needs to be. So we're changing things on our hop processes and our combination of yeast strains, and how we're doing that to try to make it even better. And so you're going to get some variation because that's just the nature of like experimentation. It's like it's going to blow up in my face a couple times.
I'm all right with that.
But yeah, that's I will promise that as much as I can to my ability, I will endeavor to never release a beer that I wouldn't drink. Which I don't know if that's a good or bad thing because taste is subjective,
I mean,
but that's my goal, right?
Yeah. Nah, it's a craft you enjoy. You put your love, your soul, your sweat all into it, man. And, you know, I'm of that same mentality. I wouldn't probably do something unless I liked it myself or release it or whatever. So I really respect that. And I understand. I get it. It's just one of those things. And I really hope you do. I hope you're able to quit your day job to pursue this. You know, our goal with the podcast is just to drink beer. So we're in the pursuit of the perfect beer. So we're right there with you.
Yeah.
And, you know, we do what we can and drink what we can as well. It's just something, man. I'm very, I don't know. I have an admiration for what you do right now. Dude. Yeah. Everything.
I like
so
that.
far, it's awesome.
I like the fact that you mentioned that, you know, you're not going to release a beer that you yourself wouldn't drink, but that's kind of a testament at the same time, right? Because, you know, obviously the goal is to be successful enough about it to where you can kind of just do what you love to do. But in the meantime, you're doing it as a passion project, like you kind of alluded to earlier. And this is something that, you know, you want to release beer that you enjoy to, you know, Nashville and surrounding cities. And you're not going to release something that you go, this isn't something I would drink on a daily basis, or I wouldn't drink at all. I'm going to go ahead and release it anyway. You know, that's not something that you want to do, nor would you do that. So we appreciate that as consumers. You know, we're kind of talking on a podcast as like three guys that like drinking beer, but at the same time, in reality, we are consumers of the craft beer industry. So to hear somebody go, hey, when we're spending our hard-earned money to buy a 4-pack of cans, right, or singles, we're putting 16, 18, 20 bucks together for 4 beers, that a lot of people would just go, why would you spend 20 bucks on 4 beers? You go, because it's something that's really good. We know that people love it, and we know that people are passionate about it, and the brewer that's making it is passionate about it. That's testament to why we're spending our hard-earned money. So it's good to hear from the horse's mouth a person saying, I'm not willing to release this beer unless it's something I'm willing to drink. So we appreciate that. Just as consumers, it's solidarity. It's good to hear.
Yeah, and I mean, just got to keep up with it. I mean, I've dumped 3 beers in the last couple months just from like, this isn't what it's supposed to be. And so it's like, I can spend the time trying to fix it and waste more money and potentially not have it turn out, or just start over. And so we just start over, and it's like, well, that sucks, but move on. Can't get so like caught up in it. But it's also like breaking this mentality of, well, somebody will pay for that. Somebody will buy that. And it's like, well, no, like, that's not the point. Yeah, of course, like, I could, if it didn't matter to me, I could do that. But it does. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that you have to struggle against, because everybody's like, well, just sell it. It's like, no, forget that.
You spent time on it, right? Just sell it.
If only it were that simple, right?
Yeah,
if only beer sold itself. And
yeah,
but I mean, consumer comes and tries that, and it's like, this is hot garbage. Like, why did I pay $20 a 4-pack for that, right? And it's like, it's not like, we're not in Philly, right? We're not Tired Hands where they're selling $22, $24 a 4-pack for a milkshake. Which, I mean, I think they do milkshakes better than anybody else, and like, that's my target for milkshake IPAs. But like, yeah, like, I don't want somebody to try and be like, that's terrible. Why did I spend? They'll never spend money on that again.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll ruin them for the style too, because they're gonna think, oh, that's. I mean, like you said, I don't like milkshake IPAs. It's because there's a lot of terrible milkshake IPAs out there that are good, and people are willing to like say, well, it's the most expensive beer we make. And it's like, yeah, because we're using a crap ton of Madagascar vanilla beans and lactose puree and everything else, right? So if you do it wrong and you screw up, it's like, fuck. That hurts.
Yeah. I haven't had many milkshake IPAs. The ones I did have before the one from you was like, it was all right. It didn't really pull me in, but I'm sold after the one from Living Waters. So it's, I'm going to be trying more. So there's definitely more at stake than, just getting a buck. You're defining a style, you're defining a passion, it's a craft, and you do more harm than good if you're just selling something you don't like. So I guess we all agree on that subject.
You don't want the one guy. You don't want the one guy that's go, oh, this Living Waters beer, I wonder what this is like, tasting it and going, it doesn't taste complete. It doesn't sound like it doesn't taste like the brewer put what he had into it and then just doesn't come back to it. There's a lot at stake at that. But for Ryan to go, I'm not going to release it unless I know it's something I would drink. That's that extra step that he takes to go, okay, I know I'm proud of this beer and I'm willing to make it. And if that person tastes a beer and he doesn't like it, that just means he doesn't like it. That doesn't mean that you didn't try your best to make the beer. It just means it just wasn't his style. And you can't fault anybody but that, it just is what it is.
I'm ready for my third. Final thoughts, by the way. I drank all mine before I could say that.
Yeah. Victoria was solid. I liked the pineapple. I liked the sweetness aftertaste of it. It was definitely different from what I tried last time. The other time I had Victoria, it was right on tap. It was fresh off, fresh out of the keg from the tap into my glass at Living Waters. Had a different experience this time. It was sweeter this time. I let it warm up a little bit. It was great both times. I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh shit. Sorry, Ryan, what did you think of your beer?
Yeah, Ryan, what do you think of your own beer that you made?
If you want me to get hypercritical about things, what am I going to change? I mean, did I like it? Yes. Um, do I like it in general as like my best iteration of uh, that particular beer, Victoria? I think we could do better. And so I'll be lowering the bitterness a little bit and changing the malt bill a little bit to kind of accentuate. We were using a particular type of flake dough. This is TMI, but I'm going to tell you anyways.
No,
Gotcha.
interesting.
Um,
Yeah.
we weren't able to get the flake oats that I normally use on that, which is I think the reason why it's not as hazy as I want it to be, and because the stock was not in from our distributor, and so I allowed them to sub for something else, and I fucking hate those oats. They're terrible, and they don't give me the mouthfeel I want, and they don't do the haziness that I want, and so I just told them I'm not going to use that ever again. So this is me with every beer I make. It's just
That's awesome.
I like it. I think it's a great beer. It definitely meets my mark as like, yeah, this is good. I'm happy, but I'm perpetually disappointed, right? Which is both a blessing and a curse. It's like, yeah, we could do better. We could always do better, and so that's why we're going to keep tweaking. Um, change around the amount of like Citra versus Idaho 7, our ratio there, to make it a little bit more pineapple-y, a little less orange. Um, but yeah, they're complementary hops, so it's okay. It's just finding that balance, right?
Yeah.
But I'm cheating a little bit here because I went ahead and poured Goldfoss, which is tomorrow's release. So
Nice.
Close there.
which is a pretty cool can. You can't see it on the
Yeah.
you guys can see it, but it's kind
Yeah.
of like a little, I don't know. He's kind of like a moving body of water, if you want to call it that. But this
cool.
one is one I'm especially proud of because it hit everything I wanted it to be in terms of softness, complexity. It was our first batch that we did in our new 15 barrel fermenter. So we hit all of our targets, and it was a pain in the butt to brew, but we did it. And yeah, had to like install a new glycol chiller because I broke ours. So it's been a fun couple of weeks.
Well, congrats on meeting like some of the expectations you set for yourself on that one. That I'm excited to drink that myself.
Yeah.
I'll have to pick some up. I haven't cracked open this one yet. Have you, Richard? The next one, the Yosemite.
Yeah, the Yosemite. Yeah, I just opened it. I haven't had a sip from it yet, but I cracked it open. I poured it into my glass. Cool. We've had Yosemite before. I think we both had Yosemite, and we really enjoyed it. And I think DJ is, DJ's he's a guest host on the podcast from time to time. He's a buddy of mine that we've known for years, and he jumps on every once in a while. He's got a very different flavor profile than both what Mitch and I have, so it kind of adds an interesting conversation to the podcast. But we all three of us had Yosemite beforehand, and then we all three had Yosemite with Galaxy at Living Waters, and that was kind of like the next level for us, because me personally, I'm a Galaxy fan. I love Galaxy hops. But something about having Yosemite, just kind of like the OG version, before any of that started. Yosemite is just a good beer. It's a good IPA. I think Yosemite was either the first or the second beer, and I can't remember now. I've had a few beers since then, but it was one of the first beers from Living Waters that I had, and that's kind of what got me hooked on to Living Waters. So I'm extremely excited to get into this tonight. I honestly don't remember what it tastes like compared to the last time that I had it. Again, it could be the fact that I've had a 16-ounce Goza, a 16-ounce Victoria, and now I'm jumping into the Yosemite. And if I'm being completely honest, I had a beer with dinner beforehand, so I'm feeling a little good right now. But I'm really excited to get into this one, Mitch.
You're just doing it right, especially in the work week.
That's right.
I was pouring it, and it's got a great foamy head. It's sticking around. It's like a little muffin top up there. It's awesome. And that kind of reminded me of the first engagement I had with you, I believe, Ryan. It was on the Instagram. the good and evil playground. And we said something. I forget which beverage it is now, because we post those, we send them, and then we just kind of holler as it sends and go to the next beer and recording. But it was we mentioned like the head of the beer wasn't just it dissipated quickly, I think it was, is what it was. And
Yep.
I hope it came off as more of positive feedback than negative. So it's one of
Yeah.
those things that we just say shit as we see it without really,
I
we're
remember
not
that
thinking
now.
of consequences. We're not
Yeah.
trying to badmouth anybody. I think we did early on. I'm like, we gotta calm down.
Yeah. But that wasn't the goal, right?
Oh, yeah.
We poured the beer and we're like, hey, a foamy head, and then like 30 seconds later it's like, oh shit, it's gone. That means it's time. But for me, that means it's time to drink it. Like, let's get into it now. But
Yeah.
it's not supposed to be one of those like, oh, where did it go? I was expecting it to hang around. It was gone. That means it's time for me to drink it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I was okay with it, to be honest.
Yeah, it was just a perceptional thing, like that caught the eye as we stared at it. It was like it wasn't like watching paint dry, so it was way more exciting.
Well, and so the reason why I care about that in particular, right, is from a beer perspective. Whenever I was working on bar all the time, I would always explain this to folks. But the head of the beer is where you get over 70% of the aromatics from the beer. And so if you're not drinking that beer while you still have head on it, you're losing a majority of the aromatics from the beer, and therefore you can't establish that flavor memory that your brain is like, oh, this tastes like blah, 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 right? And so then whenever you go back for that second sip, that third sip, it's like it's already established that, and so you're moving on, tasting more complexities, but you lose. So in essence, what I'm saying is like you lose 70% of the taste of the beer by not drinking it with the head. So not having a foamy head is actually a big problem. And so trying to like rectify that on our end, because it's like, okay, we lose X carbonation when we're transferring it from this vessel to this vessel, and then from that vessel into the can, and making sure that we're getting proper readings and everything's going right. And so we actually modified several parts of our process in canning after kind of seeing that, because it was something we noticed as well. But like whenever you guys called it out, it's like, yeah, that's a fucking problem. Like we got to fix that. So it's just, you got to figure it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good to hear that feedback too. That's thank you for that, by the way. That's cool. The man,
I took a sip.
I started staring at it and lost my thoughts because I'm too in now. I used to drink a lot more in my youth, and
now you're getting older and you're working too many hours, Mitch.
Yeah, shit happens.
I'll run down this one: Yosemite Double Dry Hop New England IPA, Double IPA, Citra Mosaic, Centennial Chinook Hops, CTZ. That's new to me, Ryan. CTZ hops. I literally know nothing about those.
Do you want a story? I'll tell you a story about CTZ.
I'm very interested in a story.
Cool. So it's actually, I'm not going to go into the full story because it's a long one with tons of litigation and lawyers. But Columbus Tomahawk Zeus. Columbus is the first variety, and it was trademarked or patented or whatever that is. And a particular hop farm had that, and so hops are proprietary products. And then somebody else, so there was a particular breeder of hops that then took Columbus and had left that particular company to go to another company, and he just happened to take some crop with him because the rhizomes from that particular species were then trademarked as Zeus by another hop producer, and so they both had competing patents. And then somebody did a genetic analysis, and it's like, this is the same hop, and so a lawsuit ensued. And then somebody went into the fields in the middle of the night and dug up some rhizomes from one of those two companies and decided to make their own and
awesome.
trademarked it / patented it as a Tomahawk. And so then another lawsuit occurred. And then at the end of the day, all three companies were acquired by the same company, so it didn't matter. All the lawsuits were dropped. But in order to reduce confusion, because it's freaking confusing. They named it CTZ.
Oh
So
my
it's just
God.
it's
Whoa.
the same genetic as Columbus, Tomahawk, Zeus. It's all the same. It's just they call it CTZ, and so I'm like, what do I call it? You know, Hill Farmstead calls it Columbus. Certain growers call it Columbus. So you'll
Hmm.
see some Zeus out there, but most people call it either Columbus or CTZ because Columbus was the
CTC.
first one.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, TMI is just kind of a funny little story.
That's interesting. I
Um,
did not
Man.
know that Columbus. Every time you see Columbus hops, so if in the future I see a beer with CTZ hops on it, and then I can infer that it's the same as Columbus hops.
yep, exactly.
Big
Man.
facts.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to put that as a little brain nugget to try to remember later.
I really want to remember that later. I don't know if I'm going to be able to, Mitch.
We'll have to refer back to our own content, Richard.
That's right. Good thing this is on the internet. It means it doesn't go away, Mitch.
Yeah, it's good and
What's
bad.
what was the inspiration for Yosemite though, Ryan? I mean, it's it's very different from Victoria. I'm going to say that right now. Like
Yeah,
it's
so um, I kind of just went crazy. Um, there was a beer I had from another brewery that was very much like just crazy, kind of West Coasty, but still New England, and it struck that balance. I'm like, I wonder if I
yeah.
could create the same thing. And so I was like, these are some varieties I know create kind of that piney vibe. And then there's some varieties I know do some of the New England vibe. And so I was like, if I mix those together, I think this will go really well. And so we did a first iteration of it, and everybody told me I was crazy because I hadn't done it before on homebrew scale.
Huh.
And I was just like, I think this will work. And it worked.
Huh.
So it was like, great. Tasty great. I was like, I modified a few things through the couple different iterations we did, but yeah, settled on kind of a ratio of what hops at what timings. But there's a lot of like, all of our beers are actually double dry hopped,
Okay.
just because some of the research I've looked at shows that doing hop additions early versus late has different effects and brings out different flavor profiles that I want.
Yep.
And also each variety has different like oil contents at different percentages, and even my lot, so the specific field that it comes from and the oil content that was derived from that field, will play into the ratios that I specify on each different recipe to kind of to hit what I want to hit. So a lot of thought goes into it. But at the end of the day, just drink the freaking beer. Like
Yeah.
it's ideally it's good. But yeah, the inspiration was just, I think these will hit all the notes that I want while still keeping it very much New England.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted
Hmm.
to do kind of a hybrid between West Coast and East Coast or New
It,
England.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that because I was literally right before you busted that out. I was going to say this tastes kind of New England up front because it's kind of super juicy and hazy in the front, but it ends really, really dank and very bitter. Or I can't, maybe it's the other way around, but it's almost like drinking two different IPAs. The fact that they're not blended together is good work because I'm actually tasting two different styles of IPAs as I'm drinking this beer. It's not muddled into one where I go, my palate's confused. I don't know which one it is, but I'm drinking it and I'm getting juicy, I'm getting citrusy IPA, but then I'm finishing my personal preference. I'm finishing with West Coast super hoppy IPA. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's damn delicious.
Mm-hmm.
I put it under the light. The studio space I'm in, I've been in all day. It's like a little dungeon here at the office, and I turned a light on just so I could put some light on this face. And it's it's another hazy. It's thicker, I want to say, just a little bit than the previous one, just on appearance. And as I've been drinking it, it hits exactly what you were talking about. I would not have been able to be as eloquent on description
Yeah.
as just a purveyor or drinker of a beer. And that makes total sense now, and all the pieces click into place. So thank you for that description. That's what it is. It's
Yeah.
awesome, man. Um, I feel like at this point I'm getting a little repetitious, but
Well, Ryan, what's
very
next?
good.
What's next? I mean, what's Living Waters got on the horizon? You kind of hinted at there's a collaboration with
Hmm.
you've done a collaboration with No Quarter. You're doing a collaboration with Baker and the Beard. You kind of hinted at that, but are you guys kind of sticking with the IPAs and the stouts and the gozas, or are you kind of jumping into something different, hopefully in the future, or what's the plan?
Yeah, so I mean, we've got a few things in the works. I think we have a pilsner that I've been brewing kind of on the side and test batches until I get it to where I need it to get to. German style pilsner, not Czech, but that's
You got Mitch's attention with that one.
Yeah.
but it's not quite where I want it to be yet, and so we have to continue to iterate on it, and that it just takes a long time with those because you have to lager it, you have to take time.
Sure.
But so we got that, and then I think the big thing for us is we got a couple new Burgesses coming out, so we'll have a coconut one,
Perfect.
which will hopefully be like crazy.
Mm.
The one that I think you guys will really love is a pineapple and passion fruit one that we just I just added the fruit today,
Nice.
which I kind of alluded to, which will be super super good. And I think one that you guys will really like is a similar kind of riff on Yosemite with Galaxy, which is
Ooh.
called Nymph. We'll be brewing that next week. I've kind of played around with the ratios to kind of find a way to balance the Galaxy in the recipe with all the other varieties. Also have a new guy I'm working on, which will be very much, and I'm not afraid to say this, it's like my target is to hit the flavor profile of Abner from Hill Farmstead, which will be a Centennial, Chinook, Simcoe, CTZ, and Warrior IPA, New England style. But
Forward to that one.
still, it'll be my own rendition, my own interpretation of that. um, I don't know, just having fun with it. Also playing with I don't know. I have like 40 million things in my head of like what I want to play with. It's just a matter of I have to sell the beer first, and then once I
Yeah.
sell the beer, I can play.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so it's like this weird conundrum of like, okay, people buy beer so I can play, so I can come up with something else.
You're welcome, Ryan.
Well, speaking on the play part, it's like so when you get that rendition of yours, are you gonna pair it side by side with your favorite, or
Ooh, good
what is
question.
what do you think?
I mean, I would love to. I definitely try to still trade for beer occasionally. I was very lucky that a local beer person was willing to trade me for the Abner can recently, so I could reestablish that kind of palate, stationary palate point of where Hill Farms is at currently. And that's what I try to do. I try to constantly, like every week, we're trying new beers from out of market to try to see, okay, this is what they're doing in the West Coast. This is what they're doing in New England, because we want to continue that improvement. And we're still drinking local as well. Brought some grist beers today, and always get some Bipco, because love what those guys are doing and want to support local.
Yep.
But yeah, it's like I want to challenge myself and step outside the box. And I think all of us are doing things in a different enough way that we all have our standout. And um, you know, I think I don't know. I'm kind of rambling at this point, but that's kind of my target. It's like I always want to get better and always want to taste what somebody else is doing. So I've got a lot of trade partners up in New England and Portland and California to kind of stoke that, allow me to continue to taste things out of market. So.
Yeah. Question on that actually. What do you? I mean, you kind of alluded to that a little bit. I'm kind of interested. What do you typically, when you're not drinking your own beer, when you're not testing batches and stuff like that, what do you typically Jones on when you're brewing or when you're after a hard day's work? Is there something that you normally go to? Is it Nashville based? Is it kind of outside the market? What do you typically drink?
Yeah, I mean, if I'm looking for like something light and crisp, and I'm not wanting to drink a Topo Chico, um, I'll go for honestly, right now it's Rothaus
Ah,
Pills. If I could hit
Okay.
that target of like a German Pilsner from Rothaus,
Yeah.
mhm.
I'm good. Um, but I think my Pilsner right now is very, it's like take Rod House and then add a floral and complex component to it.
Hmm.
And that's more my vibe. Um, but I haven't hit it quite where I wanted to. But then I also get a lot of DeGard,
Hmm.
which uh, you would probably hate because because it's very sour.
But I can respect it. I mean, I may not enjoy
um,
it, I may not drink it, but I can respect what they're, what's being done.
yeah. And then from a like a pastry stout perspective, like Modern Times is just
Hmm.
doing a phenomenal job right now
Yeah.
of doing some crazy pastries that are really really good. And so usually that's kind of what I'm drinking to kind of like establish a flavor profile, and always looking for inspiration.
Hmm.
And right now I'm reading a book on sake fermentation, actually. So
Ooh, there you go, Mitch.
Hey,
koji fermentation.
You
have
just
you?
jumped into
Hey, hey,
Mitch's
hey,
territory.
hey. Have
Mitch,
you
raise your
spoke?
hand. Question.
Have you spoke to Byron yet from Proper Sake about that?
I haven't spoken to Byron yet, but definitely trying to learn every aspect, of fermentation science.
Mm.
That's also why like I go to a lot of bourbon distilleries
Ah,
and
yeah,
talk to those folks. We've got some Wilderness Trail barrels lately,
yeah.
looking at some new Riff barrels, trying to find all of our barrels. We try to actually source, get the bourbon from the barrel so I can
Mm.
develop a recipe around the barrel versus just like throwing XYZ uh, beer into it, which is great and it will still make good beer. But I want to try to like modify my recipes according to what the bourbon tasted like, so it can
Right.
ideally bring out the flavors that I really want to bring out.
Yeah.
So
Man, the Pilsner talk gets me excited because for whatever reason, I got back into Pilsners this year. And, for a while, I was just hating on them in my mind, not verbally, but I just never would order them.
Yeah.
And one day I had one. I was like, I don't mind this. This is very refreshing. It's, kind of clear, kind of like easy just to throw down. And I don't
Southern
know.
Grist?
Well, eventually Southern Grist came out with the Hoppy Crisp or
Mm.
not Hoppy Crisp, Southern Crisp, and then the Hoppy Crisp,
Yeah.
and both just like blew my mind when it came to Pilsners because I just never had anything like the Hoppy Crisp, and
Hmm.
that's
the
still in.
Southern Grits.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just like it. I'm excited to see like the new kind of pilsners that formulate over time. Especially, I didn't even think about. I think it's a dry hopped pilsner or whatever or something. I've never brewed myself, so whenever something like that came out, I was just like, oh shit. I didn't know that was a thing. Like, I'm a dumbass. Like, holy shit. But I don't know exactly all the components that go into a pilsner. I know the basic ingredients, but I don't know the process of getting the flavor profile that you want in the long term of things. But short term, from tap to mouth, it was awesome, and I look forward to more pilsners. And hearing that you're about to go back into pilsners or do pilsners, I don't know which, because at first I thought you were around for 2 or 3 years, and then you had your 1 year anniversary, so I got confused. So, so just count me as excited.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm totally excited to hear about pilsners. It's been something I've been I guess, affirming my state of mind on when it comes
Hmm.
to what I choose to drink. So,
Well,
it's
they
gonna be
say the spectrum goes from you're into New England IPAs and hoppy beers, and then you get into sours a little bit,
hmm,
and then you get into stouts and pastries, and then you go to saisons, and then from there you go back to pilsners because you've had pastry and crazy and fruited and all
mm,
that stuff, and so it's kind of a big circle, and then you start back on the hazies. So, you
yeah,
know, uh,
Huh.
for me right now, I think I'm probably back on the pastry train, but I definitely love me some good pilsner. But the thing with pilsners and lagers is there's nowhere to hide,
mm,
right? You can throw a crap ton of chocolate and vanilla and banana and whatever you want at a beer, and it'll hide a lot of the defects in the base. But if you haven't figured out the base, it's still a crappy base. And Pilsner doesn't give you that freedom, like, or lager. Like it's either good or it's not. You can't throw a ton of hops at it to mask the fermentation problems and your skill as a brewer. So hopefully I figure it out. But I mean, it's a challenge, right? So it's fun.
Man,
I'm excited for the days that come, man.
Yeah,
I really am. I think there's just kind of what Ryan you've alluded to of what's on the horizon for Living Waters. I think I'm gonna try it. I really am. You know, I'm more as an IPA guy or as a stout guy myself. Pilsners have never really been something that I gravitate to, but I'm willing to try it. You know, if it's good. Mitch has been on this really big Pilsner kick lately, and we've joked about this a few times, but you know, Southern Grist got him on, you know, with like hop, you know, honey. This is Pilsners. He just, you know, that's just, I see him checking in on Untapped constantly.
Oh yeah.
And I know that, you know, he's kind of going back on that, and to see that Living Waters is, you know, hopefully on the horizon soon in the future, coming out with something like that. I know he's going to be picking it up. I'm definitely going to be picking it up too. I'm excited for what's to come. I really am.
Yeah. And I'll circle back to the Koji stuff. It's like, I've got 9 proper sake beers with Koji shit in them, and I have yet to try them. And actually, well, I had one. I told Richard about it because sake's been something that I've been interested in for years, and I just never actually picked up pen, pencil, or even the mouse to click around and learn about it. And it's one of those things that I just I've left it as a cloud to always enjoy the rain that hits me from. You know what I mean? It's just, I've always enjoyed unfiltered sake, and now it's in beer, and I wasn't expecting that. And especially with a hazy IPA, it was an experience. So it's one of those things that I'm looking forward to having again, and then the few variations I've got in the fridge. But it's one of those things that, you know, second you said something about getting into sake and such,
Mitch is sold.
Win. Because everything I've had from Living Waters is just like fucking good, dude.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to your creativity and what you bring out here, especially after our discussion today. I'm getting close to the end of my beer, and I mean, I'm good to keep going, but it's up to all of us as a whole. So you guys let me know. It is a work night, so I don't want to keep
it is a work night for sure. I'm not sure. I'm going to leave that up to Ryan. I've had my 3 Living Waters. I've got one on deck, but I also know Ryan's a busy guy. So I'm going to leave that up to him, but man, it's been an experience. Ryan, what do you think, man? Are you good for one more, or are you feeling
yeah,
3
I mean,
is your limit?
it's up to you guys. I mean, if you're gonna go into stouts, like we're gonna get it tanked. But
I'm gonna probably stick with a random number here.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is where, so the 4th beer, if we get into it, I want to say just pick whatever your body or heart desires at this point, because this is where we're just going to talk about whatever we picked and get into it a little bit.
Lightning round.
You know, once we hit the bottom of the glass, then we'll call it good and, you know, wrap it up.
Yeah. So what you got? Good?
I'll have to go to the fridge, but I have a few ideas. So I guess at this point, you know, if you need a rinser or a rinse break or something, go for it. If you need a hydrate, and we'll get back into it here momentarily. Hey everyone, it's Mitch from the Foamy Heads. Thanks for listening. This episode has meant a lot to us. We've been just simply recording our own musings with beer and everything, so now we're taking it to the next kind of level where we just want to be able to talk about beer with the people who create the beer that we drink. especially the local folks that we are really trying to talk to. It's great to be able to take time out of all of our days to sit down and have a beer and talk about a craft that's grown to crazy proportions and continues to grow to this day. And it's a feat in itself. And there are tons of palates out there and tons of opinions and plenty of room to talk about it. So, I know my palate changes almost yearly depending on what I get into, but everyone has their own story about how they got into the craft, where you want to explore it in our pursuit of the perfect beer. So I'm super happy that you've joined us for this journey, and we're going to continue to track it as long as we can. So thanks again for joining. Feel free to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and if you want to contact us directly, you can directly message us on any of those platforms, or you can email us at our Gmail, which is thefoamyheads@gmail.com. Again, thanks for listening.
Woo. Time for the lightning round.
Yeah, man.
What are you drinking?
All right, I'll go first, but you guys follow up.
Yeah.
So I got this from our meeting yesterday, Richard. Spare Parts IPA by Perennial.
Okay.
I haven't had many Perennial, just background on that. And this says, awesome, they put it on their can, so I can talk about it a little bit.
Sound intelligent now.
Woo! Here we go. Hops is Columbus, Cascade, Chinook. I'm only very familiar with Cascade on the IPAs I've had, I guess, this year. My problem is when I say I've had experience, that only means I drank it. And when I say this year, it's because there's no way I'm going to be able to recall last year. Like, there's just no way unless I'm doing the work. You know what I mean? I'm doing the work to drink it. I'm just not doing the work to make it. And
that's fair.
The grist, it says, is 2-row flaked oats and spelt for those who care.
Huh.
I care, but I don't know what it means.
Yeah. The only perennials I've had have been stouts.
I only know flaked oats out of this list, and spelt. Like,
so 2
minimal.
rows of barley. Spelt is another one that's just kind of like a very fluffy, used as a grain bed supplement to allow for better filtration. So
there you go.
But also has kind of a peachy vibe to it.
I like peach, so I have a feeling I'm going to like this one. I'm going to go ahead, open it, pour it, say what I say, and then we'll move on to whoever wants to do next. I'm going to do an aggressive pour.
There you go.
It's a big-ass glass I got here with King of the Hill, folks. And
there you go.
I got back into King of the Hill this week with my wife. It's like something we both grew up on. And I never realized Dale changed voices. And like, the first season, I don't remember if it was the second season it changed or what, but first season he's deep voiced and he's just very conspiracy theory. He keeps that part, but his voice changes to like this crackly voice, and it's perfect for him. But anyway, I was super proud of my glass when I got it. And I'll pull it up to the video camera here and see if you guys can see it. I'm trying. I
background's
use this
messing a little bit with it.
Background's going straight waterfall.
Yeah. May or may not have been by design, actually. Right?
Yeah. Well, I've got a really healthy head on here, and there we go. Now you can see the raw footage of me now. Yeah. Check it out, and you can see I've got a pretty good head on this. It was peaking over, kind of muffin toppy, but it's dissipated now. It's conceding or continuing to recede 3 beers in, and I should probably rotate this so you can see the gang at their own table here.
There you go.
But it was pretty awesome to get this in just in time. I have an agreement with my wife and my glassware. If I get something new, I got to throw something out because she really likes mugs, and I made that rule, so I got to abide by it.
There you go.
Anyway, on the nose, as I get some on it, it's a floral. A little floral, a little bit of a beer room stank on it. Non-brewer talk here. I'm trying to pick out what I think. That's all I got. It's pretty floral, and there's a little bit of that hoppy smell to it, but I couldn't pick out anything else because it's kind of airy after that. It doesn't have extra smell to it that I can pick out.
Okay.
Could be the beer talking, just could be my shitty nose. So a little bitter smell to it as well. But first sip, it's kind of lighter on the first sip. I did have a rinse before this, just a real quick one. And there's a little bit of a light bitter hop to it, and it sticks around, but it's still kind of light. It just kind of, it's barely, as you can tell from my grabbing my little, it's like barely holding on there. But it's there and it's present. I'm enjoying it. I'm trying to think what else to say about it other than that taste, but it's another one of those hazies. I can't see through it. A little bit of a juiciness right at the, I think it's right up front. Yeah, just a little bit, but it's not like, nothing like what we have here in local Nashville. So, it's spare parts, man. It's tasty. It tastes clean, but it's hazy. So it's kind of interesting. I'll develop the story as I go. Who's next?
I'll jump in. So I am going probably in the opposite direction. I'm continuing on in the increase in ABV, as it were, in the hops. I'm actually drinking Stone Brewing's Ruin Again. I'll hold the... I know we're not releasing the video, but I've got the Stone Ruin Again, which is kind of like the Ruin 10 triple IPA from Stone Brewing. So that was their 10th anniversary of the brewery, and then they came out with the Ruination, which is their double IPA, and they came out with a 10-year anniversary, which would end up being a triple IPA, 10%. They called it Stone Ruin 10, and it was like that for a couple of years. And then they came out last year with like an orange creamsicle version, or maybe it was 2 years ago, and it was just kind of like, it was a complete deviation from what they were normally doing. And I don't know, to me, it wasn't the Ruin 10 that I remembered. It wasn't necessarily bad. It was a completely different version of what they're used to doing. And they did that instead. And then this year they came out with the Ruined Again, which is basically the homage to their Ruin 10. So it's a 10.8% triple IPA, West Coast super dank, super bitter IPA from Stone Brewing, and just kind of pouring it, the head stays on. I mean, I literally poured this like 3 or 4 minutes ago, and it's just staying there. It's super dank, just kind of smelling it. Super dank, super bitter. It stays with you. Let me get into the taste real quick. Woo. Yeah. That's a Stone beer. Yeah. It's a Stone beer. You crack open a Stone beer and you drink it, and what a Stone beer tastes like, when you try a Stone IPA. And the 10% definitely, the 11% kind of, pulls through, but the hops are super present. It's super bitter, super dank. I think dank more than anything. I think I kind of mentioned that at the beginning of the session, that I go towards like the juicy IPAs, or I go all the way over to the West Coast super dank IPAs, and I love the California lifestyle. That's just kind of my thing. And this is kind of like the version of that. So being able to have the West Coast brought to me, Stone releases beers out here on the East Coast, kind of in Nashville in the South area, but the Ruined Again is kind of like it's a once a year thing that they like to release. And so I'm always excited when I get a chance to have the Ruined 10 or the Ruined Again. So that's what I'm drinking, and it's super bitter, super dank. I love it. So I'm just going to continue drinking on it, and I'm just going to pass the mic over to Ryan and see what he's drinking right now.
So for me, I decided to go with a local, not local. I'm a little bitter about that. So Pharmacy came
Oh,
with a
There you go.
Pharmacy Porter, which is a beer brewed with Perennial out of St. Louis, which is where
Yeah.
I'm from.
There
So
you
it's
go.
like partly a little bit bitter, partly like, well, it's St. Louis, whatever. And so it's a porter beer. Actually, when I picked it up, I thought it was a Pilsner because I was like, oh, Pharmacy Pilsner, like let's go.
yeah.
But no, it's a porter, which is cool.
Huh.
So foam definitely stayed around for a fair amount of time, good carbonation level. They say that this one is brewed with Magnum and Spalt hops, which in a porter or a stout, like the hops are really kind of irrelevant. They shouldn't be there anyway. So it's just like, okay, it's bittery, and like most of the flavor from the hops is gone other than bitterness. Grains is Munich, Carafa, Cara Munich, and Vienna. Cool. I had this the other night, so let's see. Definitely very roasty. Like that's the thing that comes out like right away. Dry, mild bitterness. So this is like a classic style porter. Like this is what I would expect the guys in England that were crossing, that river in London to drink on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I mean,
Porter. I mean,
it's a porter. Not necessarily what I would drink on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to go for a Pils or an IPA, New England, even a milk stout, because that's what I like to brew. But taste is subjective. I will say cool, good on Perennial and Pharmacy for doing that. Hey, Pharmacy, give me a call. Happy to brew a collab with you. I'm down the street.
There you are.
But now throwing a little shade, but not really.
The foamy heads approve this message.
For a while, whenever we were like, oh, we're drinking this, it's like, did Pharmacy open a St. Louis location? I'm like, I don't really know, but like, seems a little odd. I mean, but cool.
I gotta say, I was kind of excited to see that on social media. A porter from a departure from a Pilsner from Pharmacy.
Yeah.
It's like, all right. I didn't get a chance to pick it up yet, but I was like, says porter.
It's like a dry Irish porter, right?
Right.
So, it's good. Like I would say, I stopped by Perennial when I was back in St. Louis visiting some friends. Went to Side Project, Main and Mill, etc. Perennial does an awesome job.
Yeah.
Not gonna be frustrated with that. They had the Sump Collab before we took over the most recent Sump Collab. Love Perennial and what they do. They do a good job. They brew good beer, especially with their like stouts and like Abraxas, like really solid stuff.
I love Perennial stouts.
Yeah, they do a great job.
They're very good with Perennial's good with hiding their high alcohol content beers in stouts and porters because they just make their beers that are so drinkable, and it sneaks up on you because it's a higher ABV beer, but they don't taste like it. They're super heavy and chocolatey, but the alcohol itself, it's very well hidden, in my opinion.
Random question. It just occurred to me as I heard you talk. As a brewer now, when you go and visit other breweries, what is your mindset now compared to when you were just drinking now that you brew?
Ooh.
I never get on Untapped ever.
Yeah.
I actually don't even look at our own Untapped. I have other like Gentry and Thomas go look at it for me because I'm very sensitive, right? But like I'm like, just go look at it.
Yeah.
Tell me if there's anything I need to know. But if there's bad things, don't tell me because I'll dwell on it for like weeks.
So just crucial information.
Yeah, it's like if there's something like, hey, there's a problem with XYZ, or there's an infection, or any kind of that call out, I'll immediately go and like QC it, right? Because we have most of our stout, like all of our stouts, we have bottles held back for us to like QC, and if maybe future vintage release or something like that. But yeah, if it's anything like that, then I'm wanting to like make sure. But other than that, I don't even bother. And then like, yeah, I just try to enjoy the beer. Like whenever you're drinking other people's beer, it's great. Because I don't have to be critical about it. I don't have to be like, I could change this and I could change this. It's like, I can just look at it and say, this is good. This is not good. This is what I would change, or this is what I would do differently. You know, Corey King from Side Project used to brew for Perennial. So like seeing the difference between Abraxas back whenever he was one who did it versus like the current crew is just very different. And it's just about what that brewer is bringing to the table compared to what was previous. Same with any coffee stout, right? So, you know, you'll get your certain breweries that I won't name who will just like take the darkest of dark roast and add that to a stout. And they are like, hey, it tastes like coffee. It's like, yeah, but if you look at like single origin coffee, which is like sourcing coffee from a farmer directly because it's a high quality coffee, and roasting it lightly so that you get flavors of blueberry and raspberry and orange and creamsicle and all these different crazy things, because coffee can do that, and then adding that to a beer is both polarizing in the fact that it's very good, but people don't know what the hell to do with it, because they're like, it's supposed to taste like roasted nothingness, but the more roasted it is, the less flavor there is from the coffee. It's like, yeah, okay, cool, like I burned a cigar until it was like nothing, and then I put the cigar ash into a beer, and congratulations, you made a coffee beer.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
It's like
Got my attention.
it's like, yeah, okay, you roasted it to nothing to where it's all exactly the same, and congratulations, it's Folgers.
Yeah.
Correct. You made a coffee stout that's Folgers.
With
Good
Folgers.
job. And it's like, but if you can actually like dial in a coffee and like be like, okay, this is how we can extract the coffee and make it taste really well, and then we can dial in a beer recipe to fit with that coffee and make it taste really, really good together. That's what I'm going for. And it's like, but it's not as simple as just like, well, I'm just going to recirculate some, I'm throwing some shade here, but I'm going to recirculate some cold brew into some beer. And it's like, okay, so you got, you know, a little bit of cold brew and with some beer. It's like, okay, great. And maybe that'll work. Maybe it won't.
Right.
But that's not what we do. And we know how our process works. And it's always dialed, and it's always, will this beer, we do a cupping before every time we do a coffee stout, and we're like, okay, will this coffee work well with this base? If not, then we're not going to use it. Or what do we think we can do with this coffee to make it work with this recipe, right? And modifying the recipe to meet the coffee. And so it's that balance of like figuring stuff out. Like you can tweak every aspect, whether that's yeast, hops, malt, water profile, or coffee. It's like adding that additional element. And I don't know. So anyways, back to Pharmacy Porter. It's a good beer. it's a dry Irish porter. It is.
Yeah, well, with the coffee thing, you know, you've got your coffee side of the house and stuff, and you know, I bet it. I don't know process myself. I'm a fan of every morning is coffee. If without coffee, it'd be beer, and it's like, you know, thank goodness there's coffee. So the partnership between coffee side of the house and beer side of the house is just awesome to hear about, and the way that plays in with the different roasts, the craft roasts, you know, the methodical coffee. I finally broke down and bought a bag, and it's been awesome. But I've also been with Sump Coffee a little bit before that. And even the guy there was like, "Oh yeah, that guy used to work here, and now he works there." And I'm like, "Oh shit, there's a coffee triangle here."
Yeah,
Like,
there
but it's really cool how like coffee and beer is intertwined here in the local city, especially with the people. So I'm super excited to hear more about it over time. But it's one of those things that I'm just very curious about process wise, like how does one choose this bean to go with this beer? And there's different roasts, there's all sorts of processes, and it's wild to learn about as I go through just a I'm sure we all do it now, and when you start to Google, you don't stop Googling.
Mhm. You just
I
keep going.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't find the end because there isn't one. It's just one of those things. It's like it's a never-ending path of finding information. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things. It's just if there's any little like inspirations that you've had with the coffee side of the house, it'd be cool to hear them. But it's just a thought that occurred to me as we talked.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the thing that's occurred to me the most is, as a business, I'm very much about sustainable business practices and finding ways to be a more green business, right?
Mm.
And also like shorten that disparity between folks that are growing our product and what we're putting out, right?
Mm.
So you look at coffee
Mm.
and you have your big machinery and low quality that are coming in and shaking these coffee bushes and getting all the unripe and the ripe coffee cherries off of those, and they're processing and they turn into Folgers, and it's
Right.
crap.
Yeah.
Like, sorry if you like Folgers, but I'm no.
Oh,
Um,
just to interject real quick, that reminded me of RTJ. A punch in the face. It's like
Gonna
fucking
run the
Folgers or
jewels.
whatever. The
Yeah.
fucking lyric. I probably butchered it, so I apologize,
Yeah, you
RTJ. But I love that song. But anyway, sorry, I digress. Back
oh
to you,
yeah.
Ryan.
So yeah, like so cupping coffee and picking coffee that is, so you have these people, right, that are
Hmm.
growing coffee in these countries that they don't make a lot of money doing it, and they either have a choice of selling to these brokers who then take it and turn it into Folgers and they just roast the hell out of it to get consistency of product.
Yep.
And sell it in a big can, and that goes to wherever, right?
Yeah.
Or you get this high quality coffee that is grown in different elevations, different plants, different species, similar to hops, and they aren't paid nearly what anyone should get paid for the craft that they do, and they're making this amazing coffee that gets roasted and cupped on site, and they taste it and they're like, this is amazing, and it gets sold, and then you get to deal with frankly the boomer that comes in and says, why is this cup of coffee $6?
Right.
I should just have a cup of coffee that's $2. And I get that, and like if you're not on your coffee journey, respect, like drink your Folgers, it's cool.
Yeah.
But if you are about ethical sourced, direct relationship farming where the coffee is being sourced from those people directly to the roaster who is roasting it to a profile and then taking that and giving it, and the barista is brewing it to the best possible standard it can be, and that's $6, hey, that's great. Because
No.
frankly, if we're putting beer numbers to coffee, it should be 4x what it actually is.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because of the amount of effort and the work that goes into making that cup of coffee is substantially more than what we put into making beer from a labor perspective. Human hours, 4x the amount of what we currently pay. So we should be paying $24 a cup of coffee if we're looking at it from a beer perspective,
Hmm.
right? Um, say what you will about it. I'm not saying that I'm going to charge 20 for it. Like that's the
Right.
economics of scale and all that aside. Like the fact is, from the quality perspective, if you want the good coffee that tastes like blueberries, tastes like raspberries, tastes like crazy things that you've never thought that coffee could taste like, um, yeah, we may charge that price point, but it's because we're paying that coffee grower significantly more
Hmm.
than what the Folgers distributor or whoever else is paying. And that money's going directly into their pockets and directly improving their quality of life.
Mm.
And so that's just my little plug about single origin coffee. Like it's great, it's fantastic, and support it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not on that journey, that's fine. But what I will say is that like whenever we're putting a single origin coffee into a beer, it's really freaking expensive. And it's not just like your cold brew, and we're like putting a lot of thought into it. We're cupping 4 or 5 different origins. So just to give perspective, that's 4 or 5 different farmers
Hmm.
who have spent an entire season of their life growing a crop of coffee to the exact spec, which is determined by weather conditions and everything like that, and how they're doing it. And by the way, it's not going to be certified organic. It's not going to be any of those things because they don't have enough money to even certify organic, let alone pay for chemicals to
Right.
make that organic.
Yeah.
And so it's even it's even better than what we would consider certified organic.
Right.
But despite that fact, okay, so you're looking at single origin. It's like, okay, great. So I'm comparing 5 people's lives, if not 30 people's lives, and saying this is the coffee that's going to go best with our beer that we've made. Okay,
Oh.
this is what we're going to add, and we're going to dial it, and we're going to do all these different things to make it like the perfect coffee that goes into this beer, and that's what we're going to do. And so that's why whenever we release a beer that's a coffee inspired beer, it's like this is from this farm, from this person, from this thing. This is what it was. It has meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's not just your run of the mill coffee from Kenya or Ethiopia or
Right.
Colombia or Guatemala or fill in the blank, because all these regions have the same problems of poverty. And so yeah, I get really into it because it's like this has meaning and it is purposeful and it's expensive, and that's okay. And I'm
Yes.
okay with that
Right.
Yes.
because these people need that so that they can continue to make amazing product, but no one cares.
You know, this is the kind of subject that I could get all Joe Rogan on. Like, like I could take 3.5 hours and get into this. It's like
Right.
it's labor intensive, and
Yeah.
I've always been looking for the right coffee to make, and if you haven't departed from the usual structure that you've been served, you should seek out some single origin coffee, especially if you like craft beer,
Mm.
because there are flavor profiles that you are missing. And it's ridiculously eye-opening when you have a completely new brew that I'm getting into it a little bit. I'm not going to stick with this for too long, but uh, I went from a coffee maker, like the automatic bullshit you buy that's plastic with you drop your filter in, you drop your coffee grounds, and you let it, pour your coffee.
Yeah.
I went to pour over because I got tired of, after 6 months or more, you get that plastic taste. Even if you do vinegar washes or whatever, the taste is fucking stained. Like if you're an avid coffee drinker, you notice it. And so I switched to pour over using ceramic pour over with the, whatever, the V60, V80 filters. Like, I'm not a craft coffee person, but I'm becoming one slowly, like over time. And, I've had other single source origin coffees before, but I don't think I treated them with the right way of brewing them originally. And now that I've restarted again with, like, I want to say Sump, but I haven't went into the history of it. But their coffee grounds are good. I think the dude does them, but the methodical is on its own level. Like that batch, I grind fresh and pour in and then make it. And there's just so you can compare these coffees to like teas where there's those flavor profiles and there's the notes they list you should seek after because it's definitely there. And it's eye-opening compared to coffees like Starbucks. I mean, I don't mean to I'm not a fan, but I mean, they're there and everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
Seattle expanded across the states and internationally, so you can't escape them. But, you know, they're always there if you really need that Americano that's not really going, or whatever. You know, it's just whatever your flavor is. But if you want flavor, you go single origin and you provide money for that flavor. And it's just like craft beer. It's like there's dedication and there's like labor there. It's people's craft. Support it. It's one of those things that it's really opened my eye this year with the single origin coffees, methodical being one of them, that I'm just like, that's all I seek now. Other than chicory coffee for a really hair growing session. That was I was blind in the past, but I picked up from a what is the Louisiana company, Del Monde, Coffee Del Monde or something like that, or Cafe du Monde, and they're chicory based, kind of with their coffees. It's a blend, and my wife really likes them, and we stuck with that as like a safety net. But the single origin coffee's there now, and it's almost a daily thing for me constantly. So I super appreciate it. So now I'm involved with two crafts.
Beer and
coffee.
Yep.
And it's great. So if you haven't experienced it, you should.
That was
Back
awesome.
to you, whoever.
I got nothing. I don't drink coffee. So I get my caffeine from other sources. So it's interesting to be able to hear you guys talk about those two different things, but being able to mix coffee with beer, that was kind of my intro into coffee, was being able to have coffee porters and stouts and things like that. I've never really been a coffee guy myself, but being able to experience that taste with stouts and with porters, stouts especially, that's kind of been my intro into it. So I won't drink coffee, but I'll drink a stout with coffee any day in it.
So here's just a random question to get us all thinking here. I don't know what festivals or excuse me, large events you've been to beer wise, festivals, whatever. Dark Lord Day is a prevalent favorite of ours here at the Foamy Heads.
Yep.
And have you been to one, A? And B, is there anything that really stuck out there that made it impactful? So as an example, when I went, I spent a lot of money.
A lot of money.
But it was a good time. But at the same time, you know, the most sought after thing, of course, is the marshmallow hangy. And there's stories just from that because of how notoriously rare and great it is. And we've got our own little story about that, waiting in line and whatnot. But, you know, the whole event itself was just like any other festival. There's food, there's beer, there's drunk people accidentally breaking the beers that are rare that they got upon entry. And like all of the devastation and all the love. But there's one beer that eludes my grasp, even it's not Three Floyds related, but it's just rare enough that I can't get to it, probably because I'm not in the beer trading scene so much. But have you heard of New Glarus Brewing?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I don't know much about them myself. I've only had the Wisconsin Belgian Red, and that thing was the most cherry beer ever. And I'm hoping to find it again one day, but it's one of those beers that, you know, the main question is, you know, I didn't find this at a festival or anything, but usually that's where I'd expect to find what I would seek after. You know what I mean? And it's one of those beers that you just don't find, you don't see, you can't get. So is there one currently that you're seeking after?
Yeah. So Nuclearis, kind of my original fruited beer before 450 North and
Ah,
all the
450.
crazy.
Hell yeah,
Yeah.
450,
but
man.
New Glarus is one of those like OG fruited beer, like awesome. Just you want a fruited beer, you want to introduce somebody to beer that doesn't know craft beer, give them some New Glarus, and
Yeah.
you're there. Anybody you meet from Wisconsin is gonna say, yeah, Spotted Cow, of
Ah.
course.
Hmm.
Um, and they only distribute in there in Wisconsin, to my knowledge.
Yes.
And yeah, great beer. I love their fruited beer. In terms of like beer that I was like, God, I wish I could have this. Like that would be amazing. Um, some of that is lost. A lot of it's like
Hmm.
allure, if you will. But I would still say like, some of the stuff that Corey puts out at Side Project, it's frustrating to try to get a BBT or a rye BBT or fill the blank any beer he releases, especially his stouts, his barley wines, and they sell out in like 10 seconds
Oh my
on
gosh.
his website, so you just can't get it.
That's ridiculous.
And like I definitely get a fair amount of his stuff just from like friends that are in St. Louis, and like that's where I grew up, and so like
Mm.
people are into that, and so yeah, I mean that, or just any of the, some of the best saisons in the world. Um, Sean at Hill Farmstead uh, makes some of the greatest saisons you've ever had, or get some Cantillon in there as well, and um, yeah, I mean those are like if I'm stranded on a desert island and I could only drink one beer,
Mm.
yeah, give me some lambic, like just give me lambic and that's it, and I'm happy.
Lambic ales.
Um, so that's kind of where I'm at. In terms of what's in my fridge, it's still going to be pilsners and IPAs, and pastries. Like that's
Yeah.
what I like to brew. So that's what I like to keep in my fridge because it lets me establish my flavor profile, what I want it to be, and where I want it to go. So I give myself a target,
Yeah.
right?
That's evident with the pilsners and
Mm.
the IPAs and the stouts. That's kind of where that's what we've had from Living Waters, and I'm excited to try the pilsners from Living Waters as well. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to enjoy the IPAs and the stouts that you put out.
Yeah, man.
We'll keep spending money.
Yeah, dude, it's been eye-opening, especially in this session, just to hear, your
Yeah.
process, what you're committed to, what you're doing. It's especially with this shitty year.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's fuck yeah, you're still going.
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah,
it's a
just
man.
I don't think I'm gonna piss off anybody by saying fuck COVID, but yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
fuck
I don't
COVID.
think you'll piss off anybody.
no,
Honestly, and this is just coming from, as a consumer, but also at the same time as just a fellow beer drinker. We can't appreciate enough what you guys are doing over at Living Waters. Um, it's a shitty year, I mean, it's a year. 2020 is a year where you have to find silver linings, and being able to say, okay, new Living Waters is coming out with something new. It's fun to be able to say we're gonna buy the Living Waters, we're gonna go have a good time. um it's just it's good. We can't
yeah,
appreciate it enough. It's good, and to be able to just sit down with you for you know shit, it's been a couple hours now at this point. It's a good time.
Yeah.
It's fun, and we can appreciate you guys enough what you're doing over there, because in times like this, when people are just like, it's a bad week, it's a bad day or whatever, it's like, there's good beer out there, and there's lots of breweries that are doing it, and Living Waters is part of that, and we can't thank you guys enough. And it's a good time in general. We really appreciate you guys over there.
yeah.
Well, do you like barley wines?
I
I
do.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a barley wine coming out, so you should
Oh
pay
shit.
attention to
Ah.
that.
Mitch, I don't make enough money, man.
Well, we're gonna support it one way or another.
Either I need to make more money, or Ryan needs to stop making beers. One of the two. I don't think Ryan's gonna stop making beers. That's the
Well,
problem.
well, to be
Man.
fair, it's a stainless age, so it's not going to be as expensive as our regular like stouts that we do
Hmm.
that are pastry kind of focus.
Awesome.
But
I'm looking forward to that.
yeah, we threw most of it into willet barrels, and then what was left
Ooh.
over we stainless aged, and that's kind of the remnant. And we're like, well, this is really good. It's not very much, but we're gonna do a release here in the next couple of weeks, and that'll be our next kind of big release. But yeah, just pay attention because it's gonna come out, and I don't know. I'm very happy with how it came out. And now we're gonna brew it again next week. New recipe, kind of a tweak because I never rest.
Right.
And that's gonna go into Wilderness Trail barrels. So then maybe I can blend like a year from now or 2 years from now, Willet and Wilderness Trail barrel aged barley wine. So that'll be fun.
Yeah,
That'll be awesome, man.
that'll be great.
Speaking of like beer shit and the season, and the season creeped into my head as we were talking, but never resting, more importantly. I definitely relate to that. But so Richard and I have been going back and forth about we're like old men now, man. Every year we talk about Oktoberfest.
Yeah.
And I've not ever been excited about Oktoberfest till I had like one specific beer. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, it blew my mind because it was a Imperial Oktoberfest.
Dragonhosen.
Yeah, that was it. I never had an Imperial like Oktoberfest before.
9% Oktoberfest beer.
It surprised the shit out of me. And with all the travesty that company has had, and we're never gonna see Dragonhosen again, but I was curious, and since it is towards the season, I was like, is there an Oktoberfest specific beer that you look forward to, or is there one that you're planning probably to make of your own design in the future at some point?
I lived in Germany for a while.
No shit.
Really? No
Yeah,
shit.
yeah. So I spent 2 years in Germany. That's where I got introduced to beer.
Nowhere better.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I actually hadn't had any beer until I lived in Germany. Ironically enough, but yeah, nothing this year for sure. I'm definitely struggling with the COVID and scaling and everything like that, but I definitely would love to make an amazing Oktoberfest beer. My memories of Oktoberfest are getting in a fight with a drunk Austrian at the beer tents.
As authentic as you can get. Awesome.
And
I love that.
So if I can find a way to like make that into a beer, it'll probably be a picture of me fighting the Austrian guy.
Awesome.
I hope to see that in rendition on the label.
but that would be my version of a of an Oktoberfest beer. But
awesome.
yeah, this year I can say unfortunately we're not really going for that. I know a lot of folks are, but that's definitely going to be on the target. I definitely want to start branching out to other areas. But just like with the Pilsner, it's like, okay, I've been working on the Pilsner now for several months to find out what I want it to be. And so it's like, I got to spend months working on a Oktoberfest beer to get where I want it to be. I won't be making a pumpkin beer. You won't see that from me. Unless it's like something I feel like this is the beer that will convince people that hate pumpkin beers that this is a good pumpkin beer. If I can accomplish that, sure. But it's not going to happen.
You've got one guy to convince right here.
Yeah, what are you saying, Richard? What are you saying? Speak it, don't show it. For the viewers.
Good for the people that like pumpkin beers, but there's better out there.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm never going to do a pumpkin beer unless, like I said, unless I can like convince myself to like a pumpkin beer.
Yeah. So I have a confession. The only pumpkin beer I liked,
Pumpkin.
Imperial.
Yes.
The Southern Tier's Imperial Pumpkin King, because it's more beer than pumpkin. That's the only way I get into the season with pumpkin there. I tried Schlafly, you know, they're okay, but it's like a pumpkin pie with a slight beer taste.
OG St. Louis, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And
I mean, they're the ones that turned me on to barley wine. So
okay. Schlafly and okay.
first
Man.
barley wine I ever had was Schlafly. I mean, I grew up in St. Louis, so it's different. But
Right.
Yeah, Schlafly has a lot of tasty flavored beers, but you know, there's so many pumpkin beers out there.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm gonna have them all probably, and there's not gonna be a perfect pumpkin beer. You throw that out the window.
Yeah.
That's all preference, but it's just one of those things, man. That's the only thing that I look forward to sometimes. This year is the least I've looked forward to any kind of flavored beer. You know, and the Imperial Pumpkin or Pumpkin was interesting to always seek after, but now it's everywhere. I think the allure was there for it for a while because we couldn't get Southern Tier in Tennessee for a while. And now that that's gone, it's kind of like an added deprecation. So I don't know, man. That's the only flavored beer that I've really just like sought after. And this year I've completely just been like, there it is. I'll get
On
this
to the
instead.
next. Yep.
But I did really enjoy it. But I mean, other than I can't think of any other pumpkin beers I've really had that have stuck with me.
Well, there's more out there.
Well, there is. I made the mistake last year buying a whole thing of Schlafly Halloween centric beer. No one drank it, not even me. Like it was a real big mistake. They're
good
a good
sign
brewery.
there.
Yeah, they're a good brewery. I'm not trying to hate on them. It's just one of those things like no one around the business where I bought the beers for cared for flavored beer. So it's just, it fell flat. But yeah, the Dragonhosen is a ever elusive thing that I doubt we'll ever see again. And I'm a little disappointed. It has a pedestal that I've put it on because it surprised me, and now I can't get it, so I can't compare it, or you know,
just gonna make it even more like that thing. You know, you can never get it. So, right. And then you're gonna have it and be like, batch one was better.
Right. Yeah, it's gonna be disappointing. I think I'm setting myself up for disappointment, but
probably.
Yeah, it might be something that I try, and maybe that's something we venture onto to homebrew or attempt to homebrew. You know, I don't know. It's one of those things. It's stuck out in my mind. It's almost Oktoberfest. There's no way we're going to be able to go to an Oktoberfest this year. I'm like, oh, well.
It's a sad reality, but yeah.
It is. But I'm about at the end of my beer.
Yeah, I just finished mine. Ron, we can't thank you enough, man. We really can't. Being able to sit down for a couple hours and talk with you about beer, Living Waters, and even get a chance to see, you know, what you're drinking when you're not drinking your own beer, you know, what it is that you're drinking. And it's just a good time. And we can't thank you enough for just taking a couple hours out of your evening to sit down and talk with us. Just as two guys that just like to sit down and talk about beer, it's refreshing to be able to sit down with somebody else that just wants to say, you know, hey, at the end of the day, we're just drinking beer.
Yeah.
That it is. So we can't thank you enough, man.
Yeah. Thank you for being... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, just putting Ryan on the spot. Any closing thoughts for me before we just kind of wrap this session up?
No, just thank you for having me, and you know, I always love to talk beer and share my little micro philosophy on what I think beer could be and what it should be, and I hope will be someday.
Yeah.
So that's kind of me in a nutshell. So
well, any micro philosophies are welcomed here in this space, and we'd love to have you back on anytime. And
stout season.
I mean, anytime.
Yeah, anytime in general.
Yeah, we'll be drinking beer regardless if you're here or not. But you know, we'll reach out and see what you're up to if you want to join us again for a session. But don't hesitate to reach out and bring anybody on board. We've got this way of communicating right now where it's a little remote, but we can still have a good time. So it's one of those things that we just want to talk beer at the end of the day because it gets us away from the day to day. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. At the end of the day, it's just all about beer.
Yeah,
that's it. And if you're not drinking beer, start drinking beer. If you're drinking beer, keep drinking craft beer. If you've never had craft beer before, check out Living Waters downtown Nashville. Those guys are definitely doing some amazing things. Just try Living Waters. There's literally nothing more to it. They've got some good stuff going. Keep supporting your local craft breweries because those are the guys that are keeping everything going. So drink craft beer, and cheers to everyone that's listening. And Ryan, cheers to you. Thanks a lot, brother. And we'll see you guys on the next time. Thanks a lot, guys.